Okay, we're on. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 8:30. Today is Monday, August the 5th. We're meeting in the Nueces County Courthouse in the Nueces County Commissioner's Courtroom. I'd like to certify that all members of the court are present, that we do have a quorum, and let's stand for the pledge to the U.S. and Texas flags, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. Today we are meeting to hold a budget workshop on the budget for the 2013-2014 for Nueces County. What I'd like to do this morning, guys, is let Steve start out with the books that you all were given Friday, and I hope you had a chance to look at some of this information before today. There's been a lot of work done by Steve and Teresa and Dale. I'd like to thank them very, very much. We've had a number of budget meetings trying to prepare for today, and I personally believe this is a very good budget, and we've worked very hard to try to be inclusive as much as we could to get us to this point. We will start off, and as you have questions, well, please don't hesitate to ask Dale or Steve or myself, see why we've gotten where we've gotten. And so, Steve, I'll ask you to start off today, and since we're overcome with public today in the budget process, we'll just go along.
No comment.
No comments, right. Right.
Well, we'll start with tab 1, and I don't have much on tab 1. We've looked at these sheets prior. We'll take you to the calendar that's about the 4th page back there in tab 1, and point out, I guess, of course, we're here today on the 5th, and these three workshops, the 5th and 6th workshop, and then the 7th meeting, these are really the meat of most of what we're doing, because by Wednesday, the court will have to, we have on the agenda, to discuss our proposed tax rate, and we'll go through our effective tax rate and what's being proposed for the county and the hospital district, and we have to take a record vote of what we're planning to do, and that will be on Wednesday. And so everything we do today and tomorrow will help you get to that point. That's not adopting the tax rate. All that's doing is saying this is what we're proposing to do, and if we propose to have an increase in our tax levy, then we have to go through a series of quarter-page ads and 2 tax hearings on our taxes between now and the point of time that we adopt our budget, which is scheduled for September 4th, yes. So these 3 days are very important. The ones that are in orange are really the ones that the court are actually meetings. The 12th and 13th I have on the calendar as they're on there, but they're tentative. If we need additional budget workshops, we'll come back to them then. Last year we didn't need those 2 dates, but they're there if we need to go there. Yes.
When I went to the last night on the website and looked at agendas, it's got today's meeting agenda that you can go to and click on, and It's got Wednesdays, but it doesn't have anything for Tuesday.
The agenda
has it been posted?
Yes, if you look at today's agenda, it's actually a Monday-Tuesday agenda.
Okay, so that posting covers you on.
Yeah, it's got on there Monday, as you see in your screen right now. That's what we have posted.
Okay.
Yes. And then, at least that's how we've done our workshops. Of course, posted the series. The next important date that we have on there would be the 19th, Monday the 19th. This is assuming that we'll have some sort of a tax increase for the county, and so we would need to have a public hearing, and our proposed public hearing date is going to be the 19th. That would be the first public hearing, and then the second public hearing would be the following Monday, and Monday the 26th of August. The 27th of August will be a regular Commissioners Court meeting. And that's moved up because we had some conflict originally on the 21st with some out of town. And of course, on Wednesday, the 28th, the court, most of you are going to be in Austin to the post-legislative, so we've moved that to the 27th. And then hopefully we'll be ready for right after Labor Day to come back here and adopt our budget on September 4th, adopt the tax rate and the budget. So those are the key points on the calendar as far as in having some importance of your presence. Any questions on that?
So, but the 19th is just a hearing.
The 19th is a public hearing on the tax. There's no decision made. It's just I'll make a short presentation on our proposed tax rate, and then the public has an opportunity to address the court. There's no response or decision made on both those public hearings on the 19th or the 26th. We do require a quorum for both of those meetings of the Commissioners Court.
And the 12th and 13th are no
They're-
action meetings. They're just
They're
meetings.
tentative right now. They're not hard set.
Okay.
We move on to tab 2. And tab 2 is the estimated actual revenue for the current year and the estimated revenue forecast for next year, and I'll let Dale briefly go through that. The auditor by statute is required to do these estimates, and Dale and his staff have done a good job of, first of all, doing the estimated actual for 12-13, and then the estimated revenue for 13-14.
Yes, thank you, Steve. We've gone through each of the particular departments and to come up with as best we can estimate actual for our taxes for this next coming year. And if you'll see the third page in, we're showing a total revenue and transfers for estimated of $74,700,000, which we show later on our fund balance. If you look over on where it says 13-14 budget, you'll see when we talk about our expenses later, we're estimated a $21.3 million fund balance coming in for the next year. Then I went through the next year on the budget, and I just made a few adjustments on some of the departments where I saw there was either a large increase or large decrease amongst the years, and just made some small adjustments to those numbers. None of them really changed a lot, so unless we really want to go into each one of them, right now with just those changes, and that I'm showing a slight decrease next year just for the ones we have of around 86,000, but this does not include the taxes at the moment.
Okay, you're still in number one, the first page?
Yes.
Here.
I was just going through the revenue, each revenue, which is the second line, which is estimated actuals. That's what we're estimating our revenue would be at the end of this year.
2013, 14?
Yeah, 2012, 2013 estimated actuals is the numbers we're going through. And on the third page of that report, you'll see at the very bottom, we're estimating $74,700,000 worth of revenue, including transfers. Then if you go over the fourth column where it says 2013-14 budget, where we say beginning fund balance is what we're estimating as our beginning fund balance. Once we look through our expenses, you'll see where that number comes forward. We're estimating a fund balance for next year of $21.3 million coming forward.
If I might, on the estimated actual revenues for this year, it's about 101.7% of what we had budgeted for this year. So as we know, we budget conservatively, and what Dale's estimating here for the year is about 101.7% more than what we had budgeted. So it's a good side of where we're at. If no questions there, Dale, you can go to the, yes. Here, Commissioner, you're.
The 21.3 million reflects about a 25 point something percent.
We'll see that the 21
For
million
fund balance.
is will be, when Steve gets to his results later, you'll see where that exceeds our 25%
By a little.
requirements for our fund balance.
Okay.
So we're well above where we need to be.
Okay.
Yeah, this will be at our target, a little above it, yeah.
Okay.
Then you can move on to the expenditures estimates, the same thing there.
Question,
Want to hit
Joe?
those, Dale?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the second page, on fines and forfeitures, and I guess you got a decrease there on the JPs and all that, about 169,000.
Well, the only one that decreased would be the county clerk. All the ones for the JPs are going up. JP 11, where I'm estimating that from history wise, I'm estimating we should probably raise their budgeted amount to 215 from 195. Same thing with JP 13. I'm saying from history and what they're showing, I feel that they're more likely to collect 135 than 120. So I'm raising their value up by 15. By 15. But you'll see at the very top, the county clerk, historically they've been below the 1.3, so I've lowered their value to 1.1 to be more realistic value of what they collect for the county clerk. So in total, the balance has gone down by 169, but all of them are important for the JPs, all of them are going up.
And most of it's coming from the county clerk?
Most of it come from the county clerk, yes.
And Commissioner, if you look at the very first column, which was actual last year, there's actually, about $200,000 increase of what we actually collected last year. And then the budgeted number is the one where it's a little bit less.
So just by looking at history for the county clerk's collections amounts for fines and fees, I felt it would be more realistic not to budget 1.3. So I just lowered it to 1.1.
And what is the reason for the county clerk to lose that much money?
Well,
Not necessarily losing the money, we're just not budgeting that high of a value because historically they've been right at 1 million every year. So we're just trying to get the value of the budget to equal what the collections are. As Steve has said, if you look from actual of 12 to 13, they've gone up about $200,000. If that continues, it'd be wonderful. But I'm saying that historically in a trend analysis, I believe 1.1 is a fair assumption for their collections and fines and fees, based on what they collect.
Maybe we'll get lucky.
Maybe we might. And now that the district clerk's starting to get their system up and running again, and there may be more.
And what you're saying in the other one, in JPs, you're going to add that percentage, 30, 10, 15, 20, to supplement what their revenues that are coming in from those courts?
Yeah, because those courts, when I ran a trend analysis on all those courts, especially JP 11, they've been right at 210, 220 the last 5 years. So I felt it was reasonable to raise their budget up to 215 on collections. Same thing with JP 13. Their trend analysis showed right at 140 collections, so I felt it a reasonable estimate to go to 135. And I did the same analysis on most of those. And as you see, some of them went up. The rest of them are fairly close to their trend, so I didn't change a few of those. But there are some that I felt needed to be changed.
In precinct 3, that's 30, I guess.
Because their trend analysis, you see last year in 95, it was 195, and the one before that was 145. If I did a 5-year trend analysis, which I did, I was showing about a 130 to 135 average. So I felt comfortable at 130. Just for JP3.
But that's not counting the big cases he had 2 years ago, right?
No.
That was in 5. That was JP5 that had the big cases.
3 is Balderas.
3, no, JP3 is Contreras.
Contreras.
Dale, the estimated actual is through when?
That goes all the way to September. We stopped at we started our value was July 1st, and then we went from July 1st to end of September as our estimates. So we have about 8 months worth of actual. to figure out our estimates.
Yeah, the estimated actual, but is that from current year's?
Yes, that goes from our October 1 till we estimated what the balance would be at the end of September, yes.
September 2013.
Yes. Yes, Commissioner.
Then we need that. I mean, we really, that's part of the statutorily, he needs to estimate that, but you need that so you have some idea where we're starting, for next year. So we need to estimate actuals of revenues and expenses, so we, have an idea what our beginning fund balance will be. And again, his estimates are on the conservative side, so that, we don't start off thinking we're going to have, a high fund balance. We traditionally do it conservatively, and our actuals come in a little bit up better than what we estimated on there, and that's what this is again for this year.
Yeah, you can see that on the trend analysis for the fund balance over the last 5 years.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dave.
Want to move to expenses, Dale?
So I basically did the same thing on our, excuse me, on our estimated actuals for our expenses, and you'll see each department listed individually, separately, going through each type of our category. As Steve said, and you'll see later on that our estimate for our expenses are around 94%,
Right.
around 94% total, and the departments have done very well on budgeting, and we have some savings there. So if we go the last page towards that, after you see our transfers, you'll see where we had a total estimated expenses of $75,395,000, and that's where you'll see our fund balance ending, which I refer to in the revenue, which is $21.3 million, which is at least above our threshold of 25%. Number for the budgeting information increase and decrease, that's where Steve will be discussing that here soon. But for estimated actuals, we're doing very well on our budgets.
So that's what we kind of use as our starting point. When we use this estimated beginning balance of $21,324,546, and then we build on that any estimated additional revenue for the coming year, and of course our expenditures. So if you have any questions on either one of these, we can move forward. The next big piece of, with having our estimated beginning fund balance, the next tab 4 is our tax assessments, tax values for the coming year. And we received on the 25th of July, which is a required date that we received these, not later than, from a tax assessor collector. We received tax revenue that was not under protest of $21,280,666,693. That was a total assessed value that's not under protest. There's $221,355,737 that's out there and under protest. Historically, we're going to get some of that, but not all of it, and when it all washes out. So the value that's not under protest is what you use as your basis for starting your effective tax calculation. So that's the value that we'll be looking at here, is the first one that's not under protest. If you go to the second page, just briefly looking at the areas and comparing last year's to this year's in the various areas. The first section is land totals, land only. In the home sites, land is increased this year by $214,900,000 roughly. A total of $2,621,000 worth of home site land. Non-home site land is at $3,291,000, and that increase this year was $365 million in increase. The ag market land increased by 52 million. So we have a total land market value of $6,877,000,000, $93,358.9, and it's been, the increase this year is $633 million in land values across the county.
Steve, I don't have any numbers for ag or
If you look at the land, you're looking at the page where they have I do have it here.
I'm talking about just on this sheet.
On this sheet, Commissioner, if you look from the third line,
Yeah.
ag market,
Okay, that's the one you're talking about.
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
right now.
I'm sorry. That's okay. Excuse me. I was looking at the wrong line.
Then we go to the home improvements, and not just home improvements, but improvements, and this is, what other structures are on the properties. Home site improvements have a total of $10 billion in home site improvements, an increase of $826 million in assessed values this year. Non-home site improvements at $5 billion, an increase of $268,941,000. So the total improvements is at roughly $15 billion, as opposed to just land of $6.9 billion. The increase in the total improvements is $1,095,000,000 values. Personal property is another big area. The personal property values of $7 billion, an increase of $751 million for this year. Minerals continue to be relatively low. In fact, the minerals went down this year.
It's just surprising to me. Well, in one respect, it's not.
So that we end up with a total market value for this year of all properties of $29,217,431,714, an increase of $2,389,000,000 in values. And I think, Dale, you mentioned there's about a 10% increase.
10.17%.
10.17% in assessed values as we went through this. We have some homestead caps which adjust, and in the caps this year, the homestead cap went from 212 million to 532 million, a $320 million increase in the cap. And there's a loss of total productivity loss of $845 million. So come down to the assessed value rather than the market value, we're at the $27,839,000,000. Now those are the gross numbers. The next section is all the exemptions that we have on these properties. Their local homestead exemption, if you recall, is a minimum of $5,000, and we have a 20% exemption for homestead, 20% of the values. The homestead exemption for this year is about $1.5 billion of exemptions, a slight increase from last year of $54 million. The over 65 exemption, and we provide a $62,500 exemption for households, homestead households of people of over 65. That's just about meets the level of our homestead. It's at $1.2 billion. an increase of 21 million this year. The tax exempt property is at $2.9 billion, and these properties didn't go up very much this year. In the last 2 years, they went up drastically, and that was the the appraisal district has several years ago started bringing all our public properties on the tax rolls. These are tax exempt properties, churches, schools, public entities, tax exempt properties of a value of close to $3 billion. They're on the tax roll, but they're taken off as far as in an exemption way, so they don't figure into our taxable values. Disabled persons locally, it's at $273 million. Disabled vets is $130 million. There's some prorated property taxes, a small amount of $700,000. Pollution control exemptions, $114 million. The House bill, and Dale, do you recall that? I had it written down.
Which one was that?
The House bill 366 exemption is a small one of $300,000. Tax abatements. The tax abatements is abatements that we've got in force, and these are primarily the Nueces Bay and the Barney Davis. I don't think that M&G is on there this year yet. It'll be on next year's. So the abated property it's decreasing slightly, and we're at $340 million of tax abatements for this year. And then low-income housing exemption of $17 million. So we have $6.5 billion worth of exemptions taken away from the assessed value. So we end up with a net taxable value of $21,280,666,693, which is a increase from last year about $1.9 billion.
So Steve, you're calculating these against the not under protest number, is that correct?
This is all in the non under protest numbers. Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell me one more time, what is the definition of a prorated exempt property? Under exemptions.
I should have that. Commissioner, I'm going to have to come back to you with that. I don't know where I misplaced my sheet. I had the sheet on there. It's not 100%. It's not 100% of the exemption on a property. There's only a portion of it that gets the exemption. But I'll get you the listing again. I thought I had it with me.
You can get it to me later.
We had this question every year, and I had the sheet here, and I can't find it in my book.
You probably told me last year. I'm sorry.
Well, it is these things. In fact, last year, as you recall, we got the appraisal district to come over and tell us all about this stuff here, and I forget and write it down.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you want to switch to the next page, I just give you a brief summary of if you take a look at, I kind of broke in. I wrote down some numbers, but the top two numbers are the single family residence and multi-family. Those two values is about $13,355,000,000 as compared to last year of $12 billion, and you don't have that there, but last year's was $12,250,000,000. So it's a 9.1% increase in appraised values for our residential properties. Then I took the commercial property, the industrial property, the commercial personal property, and industrial personal property, those four categories, and they make up $10 billion worth of the tax base. Last year was at 9 billion, and it's just slightly less than a 100 million increase, and the increase is 10.36% on those properties. So I'm on page. Yes, sir. And I just looked and took out, as I said, the first two items, A and B, which was residential, and then I looked at F1 and F2, which is commercial property and industrial property, and L1 and L2, which is the commercial personal property and industrial personal property. I added those four categories together, and the increase in values in the commercial industrial properties increased by 10.4% this year, and the residential's increased by 9.1% for the year. Just so you get a sense of
So as your economy grows, your housing market should grow.
the housing has grown, the industrials have grown in the both, a little bit more. Probably in the industrial area, there's probably some new construction, although new construction plays in all this stuff as far as values, and so if you look at for the year on the same page down at the bottom, we had $301 million of new growth value. And that new growth value, you can see single-family houses made up of 200 million of it. So the single-family housing growth for the year, as you say, the economy, the housing structure started building, and that was where the value. So that's a big part of it. Any questions on basically, this comparison?
Could we go back to the previous page for just 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Steve? Could you talk just a little bit about the freeze taxable and the freeze adjusted taxable lines?
Yes, Dale can.
Yes, Commissioner. Basically, the freeze is the over 65 where we froze their taxable amount. Basically, that is the value of what the freeze would be at to be able to get it. So for us, this is basically anything above that's what we lose in taxes. So that's our freeze amount. So we say here's our net taxable less that amount, which is the increase, to get our taxable amount after the freeze.
So which number at the end of the day are we going to work with? The 21.2 or the 20?
The 20.
393.
Yes, the 20.
20.3 is the bottom line for us.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And Dale will take through that a little bit more as we go on the calculations. But yeah, that continues the freeze taxable continues to grow, and the only way they'll,
So those are homeowners whose taxes have been frozen because of their age.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the only way they get an increase if the house is sold or they move to different. So those are the valuation numbers. Now we go to the follow-on page, which Dale will take you through, and this is the calculation of what we will get in general fund revenue next year. And Dale.
This is our fund calculations on the effective tax rate. What we've done is we've taken the value that we've been talking about here for our assessed value and next taxable value, and we'll see on where it says 2013-14 taxable value excluding the ceiling property, and that's the frozen property we've been talking about, and that's a 20,613 number. Now, this may be a little different what we're showing on from the rolls that the appraisal district provides to us, because we get to include the rolling stock from our railroads, and that was around a $6 million value. So that's going to be a little higher than the value we've seen before, because the appraisal district doesn't provide us that information. That comes from the comptroller.
So slightly higher than the 20.3 billion
Yes.
you were talking about. Okay.
Because we're talking about $6 million more was our railroad rolling stock.
Okay.
We're able to include that, and then there's a few other adjustments that you don't see that apply to this value. So we took our balances to come up with what we call our rates that we're talking about. Now, we've been working with a few scenarios with Steve, and with the judge. The rate we see here is slightly below the rollback rate from the county. And we'll go over the rollback rates in a little bit later. And now, these numbers are going to change slightly because we're still working with the appraisal district to get values on our TIF values of the Pottery Island. They had some errors on Friday that we're still trying to resolve. And so will change slightly. It won't change a lot, but it will change slightly. So we go through each numbers to value our total tax rate, which is what I'm estimating, 0.34475. Our debt rate is 0.054404, and that pays for our total debt requirements for 2013-14. And then we have our farm to market rate, and that farm to market rate is the value at the maximum rollback rate. So we're estimating, we wanted a fund balance when we were talking with the judge and Steve of 28,601.95 general fund tax rate. On the value, going by our total, we would get a total value of 58,993. Now we get to include some of the freeze that we mentioned earlier before, and we're estimating the freeze level that we can actually tax, it will get us about $2 million more. So our total general fund levy is $61,069,000. We always conservative at 65% or 95%. So for our particular scenario, we're going to budget for the general fund $58,016,333, and if you compare that to the last year, so that's a $4.3 million increase. And then just the bottom below, just our scenario, trying this back into the information came from the appraisal district. So for this particular situation, we're saying that the general fund's taxes for 13-14 will be $4.3 million more than last year at this rate. Is there any questions?
Okay, you show $20,328,184,605.
That would be on our truth and taxation line 16. That's taking our rollback, our roll, and we add in our rolling stock, then we subtract out TIF values, and then we do some other adjustments to come to that value.
So that's why it's different than the $20,393,000.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you'll see the 2013-14.
When you get a chance, I'd like to see what you're. When you get a chance, you'll have some time the next day or two. I'd like to see what you're deducting out of
Sure, no problem.
All right.
But you'll see towards the bottom, you'll see 2013-14 taxable value excluding city properties is a $20,613,089, which matches the top value that you're showing as taxable value less the ceiling. So you kind of see what we're adding and subtracting, but there's more than that, and I'll definitely get with you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
And the second page basically goes over our debt service like we had mentioned. The debt service, our current requirements for our debt is $11,200,000. So we're saying that this 0.0544 debt rate would pay for that without using any fund balance.
And do you have the farm market with you?
Farm market, yes. I did make copies of that. You got that one all hot off the press before I came over here.
And I don't know, did you want to go through your scenarios, Dale?
Yeah, on the first scenario, when we talk about the general fund on the next pages, we're basically talking about the same taxable value to tax rate. So we show, again, the $58,017,000 worth of current taxable levy that we hope to collect at 95%. And that is basically a formula that we use to collect how much our delinquent taxes would be and our penalties interest would be of 3.7 to 3.27%, 1.29%, of our total levy is what we estimate for delinquent and penalties and interest. And as you see below, then we have the showing what our rates for each of the particular entities would be: debt service, front of market, general road, and then you'll see at the very bottom the effective tax rate that was calculated of 32, 31, 31. And again, this will change slightly when we get all the correct numbers from the appraisal district. Shouldn't change very much, but it will change.
They've got all those discrepancies they had. I think last year was a pretty substantial discrepancy with the city of Port Aransas, I think.
They fixed most of those. The problem we were having was not necessarily rates, is that when they calculated our TIF values, they were just excluding a few properties. So our main problem was they weren't giving us the correct value for our TIF. So once they give us the correct values, we should be able to factor that in, because that's one of the numbers we have to subtract to come with our rate. So it shouldn't be a big problem.
You're $1 off on your tax levy.
Okay.
Dale, I've just got a question. On the page before that, we always come up with a total of 21 something, 21.5. But yeah, we go back another page, we start with 20. What? I thought the total when it was 21, that's our base, so we start with 21. Well, we always start with 20.
Well, that 21.5 would be if you took the very first page from what Steve provided you from the appraisal district, and we added in our rolling stock of 6 million, and then we were able to subtract the balance of what we call our freeze, you would come up with 21.
Commissioner, if you look at the colored page, if you look at the very bottom, that's where he starts with the 20 million.
Right.
Okay, it's not that, so that the free stuff comes out of there.
But even though we show 21 in other pages, that doesn't put us in a higher level.
Yeah,
Well, the 21 is there basically here's so the total value before any exemptions or freeze or any values is a 21 billion 502. Then they extract, they deduct the freeze values from that, the TIF values from that, as well as your other values that we do for exemptions.
So we don't
to
show
get our
that.
taxable to get
So
to
the
that
21,508 really is not. But there's some deductions from there, I guess.
Yes.
We don't show those here, though, right?
They just don't show it here, but when we go through, we are provide the numbers what Steve had provided on this one sheet where he shows you our differences, and where he shows freeze taxable value. If we were to add in the rolling stock, which is not included in here, we'd be very close to what the numbers are here.
We can show what's not added, deducted, or whatever. So we don't know what's.
I tell you what, I don't even understand the effective tax rate. I leave it to the auditor in the tax office. That whole effective tax rate, I mean, particularly with the freeze in there now, they do it on a program, but Dale can probably sit down. But I think what they've used in the past. They try to encompass most of the stuff there. It's not a simple what you want in your government. Here's your taxes and where you go.
20, and I keep saying 21, 25.
We'll definitely go over with you how it basically does. We start with your first sheet that the appraisal district provides us, and this issue was 21,502. From that entry, we add in railroad rolling stock, and then we subtract out freeze value of $800 and something million to come up with our beginning taxable value. From that taxable value, then we subtract out the value from our TIF. Then we subtract out other values that we might have put in, whether we have a pollution control, which we don't, or some other mandates that we're not involved with. So we take your value less your TIF comes up to what we say is our net taxable value, which is where we calculate the effective rate from. And we can go through those numbers if you need to. I'll have the forms printed. We can go through each one of them. It's kind of confusing, but we can go through them.
When you talk about railroad rolling stock, what specifically you're talking about?
The railroads we have over here on Agnes, where all the they transport stuff on railroad tracks.
You mean the contents that are on those rail cars?
Mm-hmm. Those are taxable, and we get that number from the comptroller.
They go through to say this is what I've got, this is where it's in on those.
That you'll have to talk to the comptroller. We get those values from the comptroller. Comptroller provides us with the value, what they say is provided on them from the railroad. And we get those from Kansas City and Missouri.